Money, cash, dough, cheddar, cabbage, moolah, whatever you want to call it, money's money. It's pretty important. And most of us are either trying to save and conserve our money, or we're trying to earn more. In today's video, I'm going to tell you different ways in which you can make money in the aquarium hobby and some different details to consider as you go down that path. Hey fish friends, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Zenzo from Tazawa Tanks. Now before I get into the different ways of earning money and things for you to consider, just real quick history for those of you that are new to my channel, first time seeing me on camera, a little bit of history on myself. I am a YouTuber, obviously, so I do make some revenue from you watching these videos, but I also used to have an aquarium service business here in San Francisco, California, where I would go to people's homes and businesses and service their aquariums. That wasn't my full-time job, it was a part-time job that I did, evenings and weekends kind of a thing, just to have a little bit of extra cash flow. And basically a few months ago, I just decided it really wasn't a necessity anymore, and basically moved off all of my clients to a friend of mine that also has a service business. I also have done a lot of breeding. I've sold fish to local fish stores, and I've also earned money from different avenues within the aquarium hobby and business. So today I'm going to give you some different ideas on different ways of earning cash in the hobby. Now I do want to warn all of you that this is going to be probably a little more lengthy of a video than I usually make, because I want to go over lots of different topics and be as detailed and descriptive as I can to help you guys in your future endeavors. I am going to be speaking a lot. It's not like I'm just taking, B-roll of all my aquariums. If you want to see that video, I'll put that up here where you could just watch all the aquariums and not hear me speak at all. But I really wanted to make this video to help all of you. So a little bit longer of a video, lots of me talking, and hopefully it does help. Now the first thing that we want to do is we want to look at why we want to make money in the hobby. So what is our goal? What is the objective of making money with aquarium fish? Is it a business? If it's a business, that is going to be something that you're going to have to dedicate a lot of time, energy, resources to. Are you looking at basically, creating a business that supports you, your family, and all of your income needs? Or is this a situation where you just want to maybe have like a little supplemental income to, put money away for a college fund for one of your kids, or, buy a boat or pay for a car or something like that? Or is it just you want to make some money to support your hobby, where you can buy all your different fish that you have and buy fish food and be able to afford the energy bill and the water bill without stressing out about it, because you are making a little bit of money? So those are all things that you want to really think about as you listen to me kind of go along, because all of these things that I'm talking about, you can scale them to any of those areas. You could scale what I'm going to speak about towards a full-time business, towards just kind of a side business where it's not full-time, or just you making a little bit of extra cash, a couple $100 a month to pay for fish food and fish and water bills and things like that. Now the first topic that I want to talk about is breeding, because this is probably the one area in the aquarium hobby that most people try to make money doing. Is by breeding fish, making more fish, and selling those fish to different people, whether they're hobbyists or stores. Now, I will tell you that this is probably one of the easier ways to get started, because you don't need a lot. Now, I'm not going to really get into detail on what fish you should breed and how to make money doing that. There's actually some really good videos out there on YouTube already done. Aquarium Co-op has a full series on selling fish for profit, and if I can find the links, I'll link them and put them down below in the description. But there they've basically gone through and made like a series of videos talking about what to do and how to go about it. But basically, if you want to breed fish, you can do it pretty easily with a very small setup, and you could expand to something quite large to where you've got, ponds in your backyard and acres of greenhouses and everything in between. So breeding is definitely a way in which you can earn money. It can be pretty easy when you're starting, but there are a lot of things to consider that may be more difficult than you think. Now, the first thing I want to say about breeding, and I've done my fair share of breeding, is it's pretty hard to make a lot of money breeding fish unless you really have a large operation and you are pumping fish out all of the time and spending 2 or 3 or 4 hours per day taking care of those fish and getting them sold. It is pretty hard to make money. Most people, when they breed fish, they're really not making a huge profit, because if you think about, if you breed a fish, you've got to take care of it, you've got to do water changes, you have to feed it, you have to use medications, you've got to have energy to, heat the aquarium and run the filtration and all that stuff. So by the time you've done that for 4, 5, 6 months and you've sold that fish, your profit could be very, very minimal, if anything. So sometimes people think that they can make a lot of money by breeding fish. And in reality, if you think about the time invested and all the resources that you've had to put into it, you're not making a lot of money. So I would say, just to be cautious, don't think that you're going to get rich by breeding fish. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't make some decent money, and you really can, and there are some people that have done so, but it does require you to scale up quite a bit. So I would say that for most people, if you want to just kind of have that little side income where you're making enough money to pay for your fish food and your electricity bill, breeding fish might be a good option. But if you're looking at, paying for that boat payment or something like that, it may not be the one for you. So breeding fish, the first thing that I would say that's the most important thing is, where are you going to move your fish off to? Meaning, you've decided that you want to breed African cichlids, shell dwellers, guppies, whatever it is. Where are you going to get rid of all these fish? Who's going to buy them from you? Most fish stores work with wholesalers, transshippers, fish farms, where they're producing millions and millions of fish, or they're importing millions and millions of fish from overseas or South America, etc. So it's very hard for you as a small-time fish breeder with 4 or 5 or 6 aquariums in your garage to be able to compete with those large farms and other commercial operations that are moving millions and millions of fish. So the local fish stores, for the most part, it's going to be pretty difficult for you to make money selling to the local fish stores unless you really do your homework and understand where there's an opportunity for you. And that's kind of where we go into the second part of breeding, and that's, what kind of fish are you breeding? So as an example, I've bred African cichlids, peacocks and mbuna. I've done a lot of shell dwellers for sale. I've done some Tanganyikan cichlids that I've sold, and also some West African fish, some jewel cichlids that I've sold as well. What I've found is the only ones that really do well for me as far as making anything worthwhile as far as money is when I breed something that the stores can't get, or they just don't see on the list very often, and there is a demand. So I know that, as an example, in my area, when I breed my 5-star generals, the fish stores want them because they can't get them very often. They don't see them very often. There is a demand for them. Same with some of the Tanganyikan fish that I've bred. So there is an option for you to, kind of go down that road. But I would say that if you're just going to breed peacocks, like the beautiful ones behind me over here, chances are they're getting a better deal from the fish farms. And if you were to sell them to them, if you were to sell a peacock, they're probably paying $2 per fish wholesale, as an example. And it might take you 6 months to make a $2 fish. So you'd have to breed a lot of fish and give them a lot of fish in order for you to make any money. So really think about the type of fish that you're going to be breeding and who's going to be buying it. So do all of that homework first, because if you just start breeding fish and you have this idea that these are amazing fish and everybody's going to want them, and then you have 100 of them and nobody wants them, then you're just stuck with 100 fish and you have to figure out where to get rid of them. So start there. So with breeding fish, we've talked about who's going to buy them, kind of how you're going to move the fish, what kind of fish you're going to be breeding, and basically if there's a demand for that fish that you want to breed and sell, because all of those factors are going to be very important. The other thing that you need to think about when you're breeding fish is, what are the resources that you're going to need to invest in order to make more of those fish? What kind of space do you need? Do you need lots of large 300-gallon tubs and vats in order to grow these fish out? How long is it going to take? Is it going to take you 6 months to make a fish that's sellable, or will you be able to make a fish in 3 months and sell that fish? So these are all different things that you need to consider. How much energy is it going to cost you? How much time? How many water changes? All of this stuff you need to consider into the cost of the production of those fish, and factor that in when you're selling those fish. So for an example, let's say that we're going to use African cichlids, and we're going to make African cichlids and sell them. When I say make, that just means breeding them. So I'm not making them. Obviously, we're breeding African cichlids and selling them off. So let's say that you're going to breed and sell African cichlids. Well, for the most part, the stores only want the males. They're colorful. They are what most consumers want to purchase, so it's very difficult to move the females along. So let's say that you have a breeding situation where you can make 200 African cichlids. Well, right off the bat, right around 100 of those are going to be very difficult to move along because they're not colorful, they're just females. So already you've cut your fish, your sellable fish, in half, or those females you'll have to sell at a discounted rate or find some other way of moving those on. So now you have 100 fish that really are fish that you could sell, and at $200, at $2 a piece. I wish they were $200 a piece. I'd be making them every day. At $2 a piece, you've basically got $200 worth of fish. So now you have $200 worth of fish that you're going to have to take care of for probably about 5 to 6 months before you can bring them to the stores or sell them to whomever you're going to sell them to. So for 6 months, let's say, you're going to have to raise up these fish, feed them, do water changes, heat their aquarium, take care of the filtration, all of that stuff in order to make $200. Now, if your overhead is very low, if you get free fish food or whatever, that might be something that might make it okay for you, or if you can do it at a larger scale to where you're not going to sell just 100 fish, but you're going to sell 500 fish as an example, and that's $1,000 worth of fish, then it might make more sense. But then at the same time, moving 500 fish is going to be very difficult because no fish store is going to want to buy 500 fish. They might say, bring me 50 of those and 50 of those, and then you're driving all over your area trying to offload these fish. So it can be pretty difficult. So I don't want to dissuade any of you from trying to breed fish for profit. I just want you to know that it's not the easiest way of making money. It is a lot of work for very little money, but it could be very fun. A lot of us are very passionate about fish. When I breed fish, I'm not doing it for money. I just happen to have some fish that people want to buy, and when they spawn and I can grow out some, I'll sell them to the store, or I'll sell them to private buyers in the area. I'll just meet them at the park or something, and I'll give them a bag of fish. They hand me some cash, and it's a kind of a done deal. It's nice and easy. So for me, it's more a fun thing. But if you're trying to make money, you're not going to make a lot of money unless you can really scale it up. So now let's do the exact opposite of that last way of earning money, which is breeding, and let's talk about service. And the reason why I say it's the opposite, because it's something that happens very quickly, and you don't have to wait 6 months to service an aquarium. You just go in and you service your tank and it's done. But also you can make some pretty good money by servicing aquariums. A lot more money than you can breeding fish. Now, servicing aquariums can be great. You can make a lot of money, but there are other things to consider as well before you kind of jump head on into it. So the first thing you want to do, and I've made videos about this before. In fact, I'll put some links up here or down below on some videos that I made about things to consider if you're going to start your own aquarium service business. One thing you want to figure out first off is there a need for people to have someone come in and service their aquariums? Most likely there is a need, but how are you going to find that out? So you've got to do your research, find out what other competitors are in your area. Are there a lot of other people that already have service businesses set up? Talk to the local fish stores, find out who they recommend. Do they work with anybody? Do they do it themselves? Oftentimes employees at the fish store kind of do that as a side job as well. So do all your research there to see if there's even the need for you to have an aquarium service business. Now, let's just say that there is a need for you to have an aquarium service business. There are things that you need to consider, like what tools do you have available to you? Do you need to, you're going to have to make an investment initially, meaning you're going to have, multiples of everything. You have to have multiple ways of changing water. So if you're using pumps to do water changes, you're going to need 2 or 3 of them as backups, because you don't want to show up to a business and have to close off an area as you do a service and then have your pump break and then you can't do the water change. So you're going to have to invest in some equipment. You're going to have to make investments such as your insurance. So if you're going to go into a business that's a healthcare facility as an example, and you're doing a water change on a 300-gallon saltwater tank, you cannot be uninsured, because if something happens, you could be liable. So you want to be insured, obviously. And then, of course, you're going to have transportation. So you may not want to be driving around in your sedan or something going to different service jobs. You may need to have a van or a truck or something like that. So things to consider if you're going to be setting up an aquarium service business. But with that being said, it is a quite profitable business to be in, because you don't have a lot of overhead. So once you've made your initial investment and you have all your cleaning equipment and your chemicals for treating water, your salts for doing water, making salt water if you happen to be, servicing reef reef aquariums or whatever, once you've done all of that and you've made that investment, your overhead is very, very little. You're not paying for employees usually. Usually it's just yourself driving out to a job, cleaning aquarium, making a couple $100 and going back home, and you're not having to do much else. So in that aspect, it can be very rewarding. It is a lot of work, so definitely this would be something that maybe a younger person I would recommend. If you're like me and you're in your mid 40s, you may not want to be, climbing up ladders and getting, shoulders deep in an aquarium, doing a lot of scrubbing and carrying buckets and all that kind of stuff. So, but it can be, a great way of making money, but it's not the easiest kind of work. Now, another thing to consider when it comes to service is you have to be very proficient. You have someone that's paying you for your services, for your expertise to come into their home or to their business and take care of their aquariums, meaning it's probably not the best thing to do if you're a novice and you haven't had a lot of experience taking care of freshwater tanks, saltwater tanks, fowler tanks, reef tanks. These are all things that you're going to encounter as a service provider. So you're going to need to know how to read specific gravity or check for salinity in a saltwater tank or a reef tank. You're going to need to know, where you need to be as far as nitrates and how long you can leave that aquarium before you come back and service it again. So there's a lot of things that you need to be maybe not an expert, but very proficient in if you're going to have a service business, and you have to be able to convey that confidence to your clientele so that when they hire you, when they're writing a check or sending you payment, that they feel confident in your abilities to take care of their fish, to their aquarium, and then you should also, have the confidence in yourself to know that you can do that job. And then the last thing I would say, and I probably should have said this at the beginning, but acquiring customers is going to be important if you have a service business. It makes no sense to have an aquarium service business if you cannot get customers to pay for your services. So you're going to have to acquire customers. Sometimes there's a cost associated with that. Sometimes you might have to pay the local fish store a commission and say, hey, for every person that you refer to me that's a paying customer, I'll give you X amount of dollars for their first visit or whatever it is, and then they might start to feed you business. But whatever it is, you're going to have to find a way for you to get more customers. So that might be word of mouth. It might be you advertising. You might need to have a website up, which I did. I had a website up and running, and that website had all the pricing and all the detailed information about my service business so that a customer could go on and find me online and see all the information. So they could actually Google Aquarium Services San Francisco, my website might pop up, and then they could go and see the pricing and then contact me. So acquiring customers is also something that you'll have to think about. Now, the easiest way to do it is through the fish stores, talking to the employees, talking to the owner and saying, hey, I have a service business. It's not competing with you. I'll make sure that I funnel all my customers back to you as far as, purchasing products and fish, and I just need to build my clientele, and they might be able to work out something with you. So bottom line, with the aquarium service business, it's a great way of making pretty decent money, but it is hard work. So again, if you don't mind getting dirty and climbing on ladders and getting wet and doing some hard work, it's a great way of making money, and it can be fun. Now, the next way that you can make money in the aquarium hobby is easy and not easy. Easy in the fact that you're not having to carry buckets and doing lots of heavy labor, but hard as far as getting to a point where you're generating revenue, and that is through education or entertainment, like what I'm doing now, making content that people will consume. So obviously for me, I've got a YouTube channel, I make ad revenue, I have sponsorship money that comes in, etc. So I can make some revenue from my YouTube videos. And a lot of people are out there with their own YouTube channels. And in fact, if you're a fish keeper and if you have your own aquarium channel, you might have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 subscribers. And I would guess that your revenue is very, very little to none. And so you would know how hard it can be to make money in the aquarium hobby when it comes to doing video or content. But if you're very passionate about the hobby, if you are able to articulate your thoughts and your passion for the hobby and share it with others and people start to watch it, that might be a great way for you to earn money. You might be able to do a much better job than a lot of us doing it right now. So if that's the case, I'd love to watch your videos. Now, the other part of that, on the educational side is there are people that will pay to hear you speak. You've heard of guest speakers. Lots of different companies have guest speakers for different classes of trade. And there are people that want to have guest speakers for aquariums and tropical fish. And it might be a situation where you might be able to speak to a local fish club. There is a list of different people, that's kind of the speaking tour where they will go around and speak to different aquarium clubs across the country or in different countries, talking about their part of the hobby and what they're experts in. So it might be something like Dutch aquascaping, or how to breed catfish, or how to breed a special kind of fish, or some kind of plant, whatever it is, their specialty, shrimp. People will pay to have that person come in and share their knowledge with the group, with the members of their club. So that is another way for you to generate revenue in the aquarium hobby. And obviously that doesn't require a whole lot other than you being pretty knowledgeable about the topic that you're going to be speaking about. So for me, if someone said, hey, Zenzo, we would love to have you come to our club and speak about live bears and guppies, I would say, I appreciate it, but I'm not going to come to your club and speak about live bears and guppies because I'm not an expert in live bears and guppies. I have them. I've been very successful in raising them, but most people are because they're pretty easy. I would say, no, why don't you speak to this person because they really are the expert, and I know just enough to keep some alive and keep them happy and well fed. So, but it might be a situation where I could talk about another subject that I might be a lot more proficient in and knowledgeable about, like aquarium service as an example, and then I could share my story and they might want to hire me for that talk. So that is another way of getting out there and sharing yourself as far your knowledge educationally, and it is entertainment as well, and a great way of making some money. The next way of earning money, pretty basic. This is the Captain Obvious portion of the video, and that's working for a company that is already in the hobby. So that might be a fish store, that might be an online retailer, it might be a manufacturer, a food manufacturer, equipment manufacturer, someone that makes tanks, pumps, filters, whatever, lights. It might be working for a fish farm. Lots of, whatever it is in the hobby that we enjoy, there is a business that's behind that. So obviously working for one of those organizations is a way of earning money. Now, finding those jobs might be difficult, so you might need to do some networking, talk to different people in the industry, maybe go to some of the fish shows, the aquarium shows, the pet shows that are in your area, and talk to some of the vendors there and get a sense of what job opportunities are out there. But like any industry, whatever you're in, travel industry, hospitality industry, food industry, there are jobs to be had in the aquarium business as well. So definitely keep your eyes open for that. If you're looking for a career change, or if you really do love the hobby so much, that might be really good for you. Now, what I would say is that if you have a lot of passion for this hobby, and you love fish and you have lots of experience, you getting a job in that business is going to be easier than for someone that's just walking off the street and maybe was an accountant or something and has no knowledge of fish, and they're going to be taking care of fish. They're not going to have as good of an opportunity to land that job as you would, because you are an expert or quite proficient, experienced, and passionate about it, and the hiring people are going to see that and want to have you part of their team. Now, the last part's kind of the catch-all, and this is really something that maybe we haven't thought about. Different ways of making money. It might be something that's so far out there that we haven't really thought about it, but it's still part of the hobby and a way of you making money. So it might be something where you're enterprising and you've thought, hey, I don't want to breed fish, I don't want to service aquariums, I don't want to, work in a fish store or anything like that. But what I do want to do is I still want to be involved in the hobby and I want to make money, doing something. How can I figure out my own little niche to make some money? It might be something like collecting driftwood. For example, I know that there are people here in California, in fact, that will go out and collect manzanita wood on their property or property that their family owns or whatever, and they'll harvest that manzanita wood. And there are some laws around that, so you have to make sure that you're following the law. They'll harvest it, and then they'll sell it to the fish stores, and the fish stores will pay a high price because this is really quality manzanita wood. And then, of course, all of us, that go to the stores to buy it will buy it and use it as decorations in our homes or in our aquariums. So that might be something. It might be something where, you found a new way of getting substrate and you know, maybe you've got some kind of landscaping business or something, and you've realized that, hey, this gravel that I use would be great. That this gravel that I use in landscaping would also be really applicable in aquariums. And so why don't I, you know, take some of this gravel that I'm using for my landscaping business, make sure that's really clean and thoroughly, you know, washed out, and then I could, you know, bag it and sell it to the aquarium stores and sell it at a discount. So when they, instead of, you know, them paying for shipping and having to procure, you know, substrate and gravel and other stuff from, you know, the manufacturer for the fish company, they could just buy it from you as a local supplier. You've cleaned it, bagged it, and it's ready to go, and they don't have to pay for that shipping. You bring it in your truck and sell it to them, and you can make money. So lots of things like that. There are ways of making money where you can still have your hands in the hobby, but not really. It might be something that's kind of indirect that you haven't thought about before. So those are a few ways in which you can make money in the aquarium hobby. Now, I'm sure that I've missed lots of different ways of making money. I would love to read down below in the comments your thoughts on what I've shared. Have you tried some of these? Do they work for you? Are there other ways that you've earned money from the aquarium hobby that I didn't talk about? Comment down below. I'd love to read those and learn from all of you. Don't forget to like this video if you've liked it. If you made it this far, thank you very much. If you've not done so already, please do consider subscribing to my channel. That's all I had for now. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.